Yesterday at 4:53 p.m., a magnitude 7.7 earthquake ripped open the Japan Trench. Nearly 176,000 people were ordered to evacuate their homes within minutes. This is the same fault line that triggered the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, and Japan just warned it might not be over. The Japan Meteorological Agency confirmed the epicenter in the Pacific, just off Iwate Prefecture on the northeastern coast. Evacuation orders blanketed 5 prefectures in minutes: Hokkaido, Aomori, Iwate, Miyagi, Fukushima. That last name should sound familiar. Port towns like Otsuchi and Kamaishi were among the first to evacuate. These are the same towns the 2011 tsunami erased from the map. A 3-meter tsunami wall of water was forecast for the Iwate coast. That's 10 feet of ocean moving faster than you can run. Sirens blared. Loudspeakers screamed. One message on repeat: evacuate immediately. Move to higher ground. Do not return. Bullet trains locked their brakes and stopped. And in Tokyo, 300 kilometers to the south, buildings swayed for 7 full minutes. The JMA confirmed the quake hit an upper 5 on Japan's seismic scale, strong enough to collapse unreinforced concrete block walls, strong enough to make it physically difficult to walk. But that wasn't even the number that shocked officials the most. That number is coming in 60 seconds. Let's go back to 4:52 p.m. Monday, local time. The Pacific tectonic plate was doing what it always does, grinding slowly westward, forcing itself beneath the North American plate, about 8 to 9 centimeters per year, the width of your fist. Doesn't sound like much until you do the math across decades. The Japan Trench is where that grinding happens. It scars the seafloor along Japan's entire northeastern coastline. On Monday, a section of it gave way. USGS recorded the initial magnitude at 7.4. Japan's May revised it upward to 7.7, a significant difference in released energy. Both agencies agreed on this. The epicenter was 20 kilometers deep. That matters. Shallow subduction earthquakes push more energy upward, toward the surface. Less depth means more violent shaking at ground level. The quake struck roughly 100 kilometers off the Iwate coast. The seafloor lurched. Water above it was suddenly displaced. That displacement becomes a tsunami wave. JMA's warning went out within seconds of the quake. Waves up to 3 meters expected. 10 feet of water moving toward coastal Japan. But here's where it gets strange. The waves that actually arrived were smaller. The largest hit Kuji Port in Iwate, 80 centimeters, just under 3 feet. Miyako Port measured 40 centimeters. Uchinohi got 30. So why were 176,000 people sprinting for high ground? Because of what this fault did 15 years ago. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake struck the Japan Trench. Magnitude 9.1, making it 50 times more energetic than Monday's quake on a linear scale. The tsunami that followed killed 18,500 people. In Kamaishi, over 1,000 residents died. In Otsuchi, the mayor and nearly the entire town government were swept away. NHK anchors on Monday weren't being dramatic when they told viewers, "Remember 3/11ths, don't turn back." They were being accurate. Japan built one of the most extensive coastal seawall systems on Earth after 2011. Some walls rise 15 meters high. But seawalls only protect people who aren't standing in front of them, which is why the evacuation orders came hard and fast on Monday. A CNN producer on the ground in Tokyo reported their building shaking for 7 full minutes. 300 kilometers from the epicenter. That is the signature of a major deep fault rupture, not a local tremor. Jeez. Data confirms the rupture zone sits directly on the Japan Trench subduction boundary. And here's the number that shocked even JMA officials. Normal weekly odds of a magnitude 8.0 or larger earthquake along the Japan Trench, 0.1%. After Monday's quake, JMA calculated those odds jumped to 1%. That is a 10-fold increase in megaquake probability, and that triggered something Japan has only done 3 times in history. The evacuation zone covered 82,811 households. That's 175,957 people, confirmed by Japan's Internal Affairs Ministry. Stretching from Hokkaido in the north, down through Fukushima Prefecture, Otsuchi and Kamaishi, both devastated in 2011, evacuated immediately. In Aomori Prefecture, 26 buildings were damaged. Schools, restaurants, commercial buildings. Power went out for roughly 100 households across the region. The Tohoku Shinkansen, Japan's main bullet train linking Tokyo to the north, suspended all service. For the 182 municipalities now under the megaquake advisory from Chiba up to Hokkaido, the official instructions are direct. Know your evacuation route. Have your emergency bag packed. Be ready to move the moment an alert sounds. That advisory remains active until April 27th at 5 p.m. local time. In Uraikawa, on Hokkaido's southern coast, school was canceled Tuesday. One person was seriously injured while evacuating. 2 others sustained minor injuries in Morioka and in Aomori's Tohoku Township. 3 injuries across 176,000 evacuees. By any measure, Japan's response system performed. But 3 injuries across a week-long advisory period doesn't mean the danger has passed. Here's why this matters beyond Japan's coastline. The Japan Trench is one of the most seismically loaded subduction zones on Earth. The Pacific plate forces itself beneath the North American plate at about 8 centimeters per year. That pressure doesn't release smoothly. It builds, sometimes for decades, sometimes for centuries, and it breaks. In 2011, a 500-kilometer section of this fault ruptured at once. The 4th most powerful earthquake ever recorded. 15-meter tsunami waves erased coastal towns in minutes. 3 reactors at Fukushima Daiichi melted down, the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Monday's M7.7 struck a section of that same trench. Further north, near Await, JMA confirmed that stress along the Japan Trench has measurably changed. Here's where it gets complicated and important. Earthquake geologist Wendy Bohan explained the mechanics to Scientific American this week. Earthquakes make other earthquakes more likely, she said. Here's the science in plain terms. When one section of a fault slips, it doesn't reduce stress across the entire fault. It redistributes it. Sections that didn't move Monday are now carrying more load than they were before. Most of that extra load bleeds off through aftershocks, smaller, diminishing. That's what happens after most large earthquakes. But rarely, and this is the part officials are watching, the next event is larger. When that happens, the first quake gets reclassified as a foreshock. Now, Monday's quake was potentially a foreshock. JMA cannot rule it out. That's exactly why the advisory exists. This is not Japan's first megaquake advisory. The first was issued in August 2024 after a 7.1 quake shook southern Japan near the Nankai Trough. The second came in December 2025 after a magnitude 7.5 struck off Aomori. In both cases, the feared larger quake didn't materialize. But each advisory is grounded in the same seismic data. Large earthquakes increase the probability of larger ones. The system doesn't predict. It tells you the odds just shifted and by how much. Right now, for 182 municipalities along Japan's northeastern coast, those odds are 10 times higher than normal. So what does the next 72 hours look like? JMA's megaquake advisory runs through April 27th at 5 p.m. During that window, 3 specific developments are worth tracking. First, the aftershock sequence. JMA officials at Monday's press conference specifically pointed to the 2015 Sanriku earthquake pattern. After a 6.9 quake off the same coast that year, a 6.5 followed 3 days later, then a 6.45 days after that. If aftershocks are tracking larger than expected over the coming days, that is a warning signal. Second, the nuclear facilities. TEPCO confirmed no abnormalities at Fukushima Daiichi or Fukushima Daini. Tohoku Electric confirmed the same at Onagawa and Higashidori. All radiation readings are within normal range as of Tuesday morning. Workers were evacuated as a precaution and are safe. These facilities will remain under elevated monitoring through the advisory period. Third, weather and landslide risk. Rain is forecast for Tuesday across Hokkaido and Aomori. JMA flagged landslide risk during Monday's press conference. Saturated ground plus aftershock activity creates dangerous conditions on slopes. Mountain roads and coastal routes in Aomori should be treated with extreme caution. Watch what comes next, because the 2 scenarios could not be more different. If Monday was the main shock, the most likely outcome, according to JMA, aftershock magnitudes will gradually decrease over the next several days. That's what happened after December 2025's 7.5. The advisory period ended. No larger event followed. But if the stress redistribution along the Japan Trench produces a magnitude 8.0 or larger rupture during the advisory window, the tsunami threat would be categorically worse. A magnitude 8.0 releases roughly 5 times the energy of Monday's 7.7. JMA's own bulletin describes this as capable of producing damage at 3 meters and above across. It's the same coastal zone that was just evacuated. On infrastructure still recovering, with residents exhausted from the first wave, that scenario would be severe. JMA has not predicted this outcome. They've identified it as a possibility. That is exactly what the advisory is designed to communicate. Track JMA directly at jma.go.jp. USGS real-time earthquake data updates every few minutes. NHK World is broadcasting in English throughout the full advisory period. The next 72 hours will clarify which scenario this is. 3 things to remember from today. A magnitude 7.7. Earthquake struck the Japan Trench on April 20th, the same subduction zone that caused the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Nearly 176,000 people were evacuated across 5 prefectures, with a 3-meter tsunami warning issued and then downgraded after waves stayed under 80 centimeters. Japan's meteorological agency issued a rare megaquake advisory active until April 27th because the probability of an M8.0 or larger quake is now 10 times higher than baseline. This is not a prediction. It's a change in odds on one of the most dangerous faults on the planet. And that's worth paying attention to. If you want to stay ahead of what's happening to our planet right now, subscribe. I post every time something this significant breaks. Coming next, we're covering the Nankai Trough, Japan's other megaquake fault, the one scientists say is decades overdue. A magnitude 9.0 rupture there could send tsunami waves toward Hawaii and the US West Coast within hours. That video is on the screen right now. Stay safe.